Today we're going to go over some TIG welding basics, and I'm going to show you how I get some gold TIG welds. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode from Pacific Art TIG Welding. My name's Dusty. I'm a welding artist from Vancouver Island, Canada. I do welding projects on both two-dimensional and three-dimensional art surfaces. And on my YouTube show, I love showing off and teaching the art of TIG welding. So if you're new to the show, be sure to bounce back, check previous episodes. There's a ton of episodes there for you to watch. So a lot of people who follow me on my Instagram definitely know how much I love color on the welds of my art pieces. A lot of people may not know this, but having color to your welds is actually not desirable in some settings. So what I'm going to do today is give a demonstration on how to keep a perfect temperature to your welds and see if we can get them to turn out without any colors on them. Some of you who may be new to TIG welding may wonder what I'm talking about when I say colors versus no colors. What's the difference? I'll explain it like this. Even though colors look really cool on welds, in my opinion at least, it is a form of oxide. There are some situations with very common jobs that will call for welds with zero oxide on them at all. So first off, what causes oxide? Oxide is formed when the surface of our hot weld has a reaction with the elements in the air that we breathe. It's a totally random occurrence as far as the colors that we do get, but the reaction that's formed on the surface is an oxide. Although the oxide can actually turn out to have some stunning colors and can be truly beautiful in some circumstances. Like I said, some jobs unfortunately require none at all. So what does it look like with zero oxide on it? Take a look at this one. This is an example of a pass that has been treated with a perfect amount of heat, gas flow, and travel speed. Combined with filler rod, this is what will create the equilibrium to keep a pass cool enough that it does its basic function as a weld, yet will have adequate coverage to prevent any oxide from forming. Let's take a look at a weld demo on a flat piece of plate. The goal is to use enough heat to fully blend our filler with the base material to provide proper wetting or proper blending. Combined with an adequate travel speed to prevent excessive heat input, as well as gas coverage, we will prevent the surface from forming oxide on it on the surface of the weld. Here's an outside corner joint. These ones are pretty tricky to keep nice and clean without any oxide forming at all. Because this joint is performed on the edge of two plates, it's pretty thin. As you can imagine, welding on the thin edge of the plate, the material is pretty prone to heat up quickly. So keeping an eye on the amount of filler I use, as well as the speed, it'll be really tricky and important to get this feature on a joint like this. It's tough to list off settings that will work exactly for what I am doing that will apply for everybody watching here, but basically the main thing is this. I will focus on my travel speed more than my settings for amperage that I set on the machine. Hear me out here. I usually set my amperage to be a little bit higher than what I actually probably will require for the weld, because basically the most important thing I focus on is getting a perfect and blended start. I want to add enough filler and hang out in the beginning to let it establish and fully blend in before I get going. What's this called? Anybody know? Fill and chill. And then once I achieve these factors at the beginning, I'm ready to move out at this point. Once I move, it'll basically be a balance between the filler amount as well as speed. I can keep an equal amount of filler, but if I slow down, I overheat. But if I speed up too much, I don't allow for enough penetration in the joint. Speaking of, I get a lot of comments from people who want to see a video actually on penetration for a joint. Weld penetration, you perverts. Come on, folks. If you're interested in a video just on that, let me know in the comments below. But as I was saying, you can basically imagine how a set amount of amperage is really dependent on my travel speed. We can switch these variables up one for the other and make endless scenarios, but it just goes to show you how important it is to find the balance between these different variables. Heat input, filler amount, and travel speed. If you get all three of those dialed in, gas coverage will have a really easy task of doing its job and giving you proper coverage. So what do we not want? See this weld? Here's an example of what happens when we let too much heat input into the material. I've been over this in a previous episode. You can check that one out here. It's in the description below. That episode will help you take care of any welds that are looking gray or, as we said before, overly oxidized. But what has happened here is that excessive heat has completely overtaken the gas coverage. So you can have as much gas running out of the torch as you want. If it's totally overheated, the gas is not going to be able to do its job properly, and you're gonna totally oxidize that weld. Again, oxidized welds can be caused by a number of different factors: insufficient gas, inadequate amount of filler rod, or overall just going a little bit too slow, thus resulting in too much heat input into your material. A lot of the time, people may think their settings or their gas coverage are to blame, but a lot of the time with my students, whether in person or online, in my online program, it tends to just be a slight adjustment in technique or speed, and things start to shape up really nicely. So anytime you're having problems with overly oxidized welds, take a look at the heat affected zone. This will be the zone surrounding the weld, and it will be a direct feedback of how you did with your heat input. What you want to see is something like this. See how there is a much smaller heat affected zone here? This shows that our heat input overall was a lot less. I'm sure that my settings may have been pretty dialed in here, but I assure you, most of it was achieved by a quicker travel speed and an adequate amount of filler rod, which, as I said before, allows for a really easy task for the gas coverage to do its job. So what type of stuff do you do with your setup to get nice gold TIG welds? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you do to get nice clean welds, or anything that you do to improve your setup for this scenario here. So if you got any value from this episode, here's how you can repay me. Go out today, you can do a random act of kindness for a stranger. The world needs more positivity right now. Do your part. So again, to all the ARC heads who watch the show all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. I always love hearing from you all and reading your comments. Again, for Pacific Arc TIG Welding, my name's Dusty. Have a good one. Peace.